Alrighty, we're back with lesson 2. Today we are reading and writing multi-digit numbers. Hopefully everybody got yesterday's lesson in and understood everything, and today we'll just be building on that a little bit. I'm sure everybody will do great. All right, today our essential question says, how does place value help represent the value of a number? And we talked a lot about that yesterday, about how where the digit comes in the number affects how much that digit is worth, okay? If you look right here at the top, this is where we're looking right now. Oh, I don't think I mentioned, we're on page 17. So be sure that you're in your book on page 17, following along and doing these problems with me. All right, place value charts show the value of each digit, and we definitely talked about that yesterday. A group of 3 digits is called a period. Commas separate the periods. At each comma, say the name of the period, and we'll talk a little bit more about that here in just a second, okay? Knowing where to put the comma in a number really helps you know how to read that number, okay? Let's look at that first example right here on page 17. It says, scientists found that a Goonie bird once traveled 24,983 miles in just 90 days. Use a place value chart to read the number of miles that the Goonie bird traveled. The place value chart shows 24,983, okay? The comma is after the thousands period. So you say 1,000 when reading that number. And I'll go over that here a little bit more in just a second. So you would say 24,983. So the Goonie bird traveled 24,983 miles. There are different ways to write numbers. There's standard form or number names. It only uses the digits to show the number. You can write numbers in expanded form, which shows the number as the sum of the values of each digit. We'll talk about that more later. And then word form, which shows the number using only words, okay? I want to expand a little bit more on putting the commas in the number and how to read the number. So I'm going to make up a number here off the top of my head. I'm just going to write it over here in the margin. Okay, I might be making my number too big, so I'm going to come back this way, and I'm going to put a 1, okay? And no comma here. Okay, so say this is my number, 1,789,652, okay? I knew where to place those commas because when writing a number, I put a comma and I go from the end of the number, just like when I'm doing place value and I say ones, tens, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s, 100,000s, and millions. When I come from the end of the number, I'm going to count to 3. 1, 2, 3, comma. 1, 2, 3, comma. And if I had more digits, I would say 1, 2, 3, comma, and so forth. So knowing where to put the comma is based on a group of 3 starting at the end of the number, okay? So let's say I'm just going to write some numbers. Okay, here's my numbers, okay? There are no commas in this number, and it would make it really hard for me to read. To make it easier, I'm going to place the commas. So I'm going to count from the end. 1, 2, 3, comma, 1, 2, 3, comma, and that's all I need because that number ends, okay? So I always count from the end of the number to place the comma. Now I know that my 7 is in the millions place, okay? So every time there's a comma, I'm going to say what the period that it was in, 7 million. And then I'm just going to read these 3 numbers together, 624, but those are in the thousands, 901. So 7,624,901, okay? And they have shown you right here the names of the periods, okay? If you would even actually turn back to the lesson that we did yesterday, you'll see that they have it marked for you. The ones period is here, the thousands period is here, and the millions period is here. And each period is separated by a comma. So those commas help you to read the number. Okay, so let's work through some examples. All right, example 2 says, the population of Botswana is about 1, and then I know there's a comma there, so 1,882,000, and then I don't have to say anything else because there's just zeros. So the population of Botswana is about 1,882,000. I'm going to write this number in standard form, expanded form, and word form. Now, if we remember, those were vocabularies from the page before: standard form, expanded form, and word form. Those are 3 very important words that will come up lots more times this year, okay? So standard form, and just like the word standard, that just means regular, like the regular old way of writing a number using just digits, okay? Then we're going to write it in expanded form, which is what they said on the last page here, the sum of the values of each digit, which I'll show you what that means. And then word form is how you would say that number in words, okay? So writing that number in standard form, okay, this is just going to be standard form, so I'm just going to write it the regular old way. So we had a 1, and they already put the 8, and then another 8, 2, and then the rest were zeros. That's standard form. Now it looks kind of wonky with those boxes, so over here to the side I'm just going to write it regularly or in the standard form, just so that you can see how the number should look. I think the boxes make it maybe a little bit confusing. Okay, so right there, right here, is standard form, just writing the number the regular old way. Okay. For expanded form, I want to write it using the sum of the digits of the number, okay? Now, I feel like they left some out because, oh, okay, they didn't. I thought they were looking at something, they were doing something else. So they're showing me that in the millions place, which is right here, there is a 1, so that 1 is worth 1 million. Okay, the next digit is an 8. That 8 is in the hundred thousands place. So 8 times 100,000, I'm going to write that up here so I know how I got that number. 8 times 100,000 is 800,000. Okay, then they said, okay, this 8 is in the 10,000s place, so it's worth 80,000. Then we have a 2 in the thousands place, so a 2 in the thousands place is 2,000. Now, to me, the way that the book laid this out is a tad bit confusing. So let me turn back to the numbers that we did yesterday. Okay, let me turn back. Do you remember over here, let me turn the page, where was that? Right here, when I made up that number, 4523. Do you guys remember that from yesterday? 4523, and I showed you that the 3 was in the ones place, the 2 was in the tens place, the 5 was in the hundreds place, and the 4 was in the thousands place, right? And then I came down here and I wrote down those numbers, 4,523. What did I do to that number? I expanded that number. I expanded the number. So if you expand something, that means you, I don't want to say make it bigger because it's still worth the same thing, but you stretch it out, okay? So if we stretch out the number 4,523, we look at each place value separately. So that,
make sure to do your attendance by 12 o'clock noon, even though it is already 40 minutes afterwards. Please do that.
excuse the announcement. Sorry about that. Okay, moving along. So I'm going to take the expanded numbers, which was 4,000, and then I'm just going to add them up. Plus 500 plus 20 plus 3. Writing those numbers out as an addition problem makes it expanded form. I have to separate each part though into the place value. Okay, so let me turn back to where we were so that we can move on now to number and word form. Or sorry, not number and word, but just word form. I'm sorry, that announcement got me all flustered. All right. So I'm writing this in word form. So I told you earlier that every time there's a comma, I know that I say the period that it was in. So for example, here I'm going to say I'm going to cross this out. I don't like it when they do it for me. It makes me confused. I'm going to say 1, and then the comma's here, so that makes me know that I need to say million. And then I'm going to read this number, 882. So then I'm going to say 882, comma, which makes me know that I'm in the thousands period. So I'm going to say 1,000. And since I just have zeros after that, I don't have to write anything else. So that number written out in word form is 1,882,000, and that's it, okay? Right here is where my comma would be, and right here is where my comma would be if I were writing that number in standard form, okay? Now, let's move on and do a couple more together so that you can have a little bit more practice before you go out and try this on your own, okay? So on number 1, the directions say to write each number in standard form, and we just talked about standard means writing a number in the regular old way, okay? So 349,025, okay? So I'm going to say 349, and then 1,000 makes me know that I need to add a comma, and then 25. Now looky here, this is tricky. 349,025. Can I write my number that way? I cannot, because I know that if I count from the end of my number, 1, 2, 3, that's where my comma goes. I can't just have 2 numbers after the comma. I have to have 3 numbers after the comma. So I'm going to have to add a digit in here that doesn't change the value of the number. What digit could I use that would not change the value of a number? That digit's going to have to be a 0, okay? Now, if I put a 0 at the end, that's going to make that number be 349,250, but I need it to be 25. So in order for this number to stay 25, I can't put the 0 after the 25 because it's going to make it 250. So I have to put the 0 before the 25. Now, if I read that number, I would say 349,025. Okay? Number 2, I'm adding up. This is already an expanded form for you. We're just going to write the number in standard form or the regular way. Okay? So I have 400,000, 90,000, 2,000, 800, 10, 4. So I don't feel like there's a lot of room on that line. I'm going to write it down here. I know that if I were putting out my place values, okay, this would be the ones, tens, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s, 100,000s, okay? What digit is going to go in the 100,000s place? How many 100,000s do I have here? I have 400,000. See that? That 4 tells me how many 100,000s I have. Then I have how many 10,000s. This 9 tells me how many 10,000s I have because this is my 10,000s place number. So I'm going to put a 9 in the 10,000s place. Then I need to know what number goes in just the thousands place. So if I look at my number that has the thousands place with a digit in it, that digit is a 2, so my thousands is a 2. My first digit in my hundreds place number is an 8, so I know that I put in 8 here. The first digit of my number that has is in the tens place is a 1, so I put my 1 here. And then finally, my 4 is by itself, so it's just the ones place. So then I could read that number as 492,814, okay? Now, down on number 3, we're going to write each number in expanded form and word form, okay? So what I like to do is just first do the expanded form because that's what it asked me to do. So I have 492,032. So I'm going to start with my 4, okay? I've got a 4 in the which place value? The hundred thousands place value. A good trick to use is to look at my place value right here where the 4 is and just fill in everything else with a 0. So now I know that that 4 is worth 400,000. And then I'm going to add to that my next digit, which is a 9. So I'm going to start my number with that 9, and then I'm going to fill in the rest with 0. So now I know that 9 is worth 90,000. Then I'm going to move onto the 2. I'm going to write that 2 as the first digit and fill in the rest of the number with 0. So now that shows me that number is worth 2,000. Now, when there's a 0, you don't have to write that in expanded form because there's no value to it, okay? Then I've got a 3, and that 3 is in the tens place, which makes it worth 3 times 10, or 30, and that kind of follows that same rule of write the first digit, fill in the rest with zeros. And then finally, we have a 2. There's nothing after it. A 2 is just worth 2. So that is that number in expanded form. 400,000 plus 90,000 plus 2,000 plus 30 plus 2. All right. The second part of this question says to write it in word form. Okay. So I'm going to look at this number and I'm going to say, okay, first I have 492. So I'm going to write that out. 492, comma. So that tells me I'm only 3 from the end, so I'm in the thousands. So 492,032. Okay. All right, so reading those numbers, you got to think about where the numbers fall. And if it's hard for you to figure out what that comma should say, a good trick would be to I'm trying to find some space on my paper here, would be to draw you a little place value line, okay? So you know that this number has 6 digits, right? So I'm going to draw 6 lines, okay? And I'm going to count from the back, 1, 2, 3, and put my comma, okay? I know that this is, I always start at the ones place, then the tens, then the hundreds, the thousands, the 10,000s, and the 100,000s, okay? That is going to help me know what each of those numbers are worth, okay? That can help you with expanded form and word form, okay? Because if you plug in your numbers, 4, 9, 2, 0, 3, 2, then you know you have 400,000, 9 10,000 or 90,000, 2 1,000s or 2,000, no hundreds, 3 tens or 30, and 2 ones, which is just 2. Then when you go to read the number, you know you've got 492,032. Okay, so drawing out your place value lines or a place value chart is very helpful if this is something that you don't already know. Okay, down on number 4, this will be the last one we do together, and then you'll do the independent practice. So down on number 4, this is a longer number. So I'm going to actually start with this place value chart because I like that. I think that works a little bit better. I know that this number has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 digits. So I'm going to draw 7 lines. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, then I'm going to count from the back to know where to place my commas. 1, 2, 3, comma, 1, 2, 3, comma. Okay, now I'm going to label my chart. Ones is at the end, tens is before it. Remember, it gets 10 times greater every time. 100s, 1000s, 10,000s, 100,000s, and then the 1 millions. Okay? So now, if I plug in that number, I have 3 in the millions place, 0 100,000s, 2 10,000s, 8 thousands, 0 hundreds, 0 tens, and 2 ones. Okay? So if I'm going to write that in expanded form, I'm going to say 3 1 millions, which would be 3 million. So 3 with 6 zeros, which is 3 million, plus, there's nothing in the 100,000, so I can skip it. 2 10,000s, which would be 20,000, plus an 8, which is in the thousands, which would be 8,000, plus nothing, plus 2. Okay? That one's really, even though it looked like a really big number, it was easy to write because it didn't have that many digits. It had a few zeros in there. All right, finally, we're going to skip, or not skip, but finish up with doing word form. So I'm going to read this number, 3, and then I've got a comma. Okay, so that comma tells me I need to say what that place value was, which is million. So 3 million, and then I'm going to read the numbers in here. 28, and then what was that period, or where did that period end? Thousands, so 3,028,000. And then finally, at the end, I just have a 2. So to read that number, I would say 3,028,002. Okay? All right, what you're going to do over here on the independent practice is you're going to write these numbers in standard form, or the regular old way. These same numbers also, all of this section in standard form, they give it to you in word form first, and then expanded form second. Then you're going to write each of these two numbers in expanded and word form, okay? Then you have a few more like word problems on the back to do. Again, when you're doing those, pop into the conference if you need help, and I can assist you on anything that you maybe had questions about that didn't get answered in our video. Yeah, if you're in my class, do that. If you're not in my class, do whatever your teacher says. Thank you for watching, and we'll be back tomorrow with lesson 3.